reality is there's going to be a point where we're going to have to say, God, I'm going to trust you enough to take a risk and go in the direction you want me to go. Now notice this, stage 3. The third stage of faith is this, delay. Delay. Have you noticed that most dreams just don't happen overnight? Isn't that true? Would you agree with that? Amen. Most good dreams that you have for your life don't just happen overnight. It starts with this idea. We have to make a decision, and then actually over some period of time, God will again show you what He's going to do in your life, but it's going to take some time. So what do we do in the meantime? We grow. God, I don't see it, I don't understand it, but I'm going to trust you. And when we do that, the Bible calls that growth, and we're learning to trust in Him a little bit more. Now notice this. 11 years after Abraham was given this dream, right, of having a kid, what does the Bible tell us? Look at on your outline. It says, but Sarah still had not borne any children. So he's 75, 11 years later, he's 86, and the Bible says Sarah still didn't give him any children. Now, you know what he did while he was waiting there? Absolutely nothing. You might even write that down. While he was waiting, nothing happened. God gave him this desire. He made this choice to get up and leave, and he's sitting in this land for 11 years, and nothing is happening. He's just waiting on God. Now, that brings me to think, do you think that Abraham doubted that dream, maybe? Think about that. Do you think he might have doubted that? Do you think he might have gotten a little depressed? Do you think he might have taken a detour and done it his own way? In fact, if you know familiar with the story, you realize that he did go off the deep end and tried to help God out. But that wasn't God's plan for his life. We're going to have to wait when God gives us something to wait on. Now, look up here for a second. When God gives you a dream, He will fulfill it. But it's going to take time, and it's going to take patience, and it's going to take us just totally trusting Him, even when we can't see it. Now, I want you to notice this. The stage 4 on your outline is a time of difficulty. A time of difficulty. God not only has us wait, but sometimes problems happen. And in Abraham's life, and in our lives sometimes, things go from bad to really bad to worse to impossible. And notice this, at the age of 99, he did not have a son. And his wife was 89. And notice what Abraham tells God. Notice what he says. He says, how can a son be born to a man at my age? You know what was worse about that was that God decided to change his name. His original name was Abram. That was his name, Abram. And then God says, I'm going to change your name, Abram, and I'm going to start to call you Abraham, which means a father of many nations. Now, think about this. Abraham gets his name changed. He's 99 years old and nothing yet. No kids, no nothing. And he walks into the local 7-Eleven and he wants to buy a big gulp, right? And the guy behind the counter is making conversation with him. And he says, what's your name? And he says, my name's Abraham. Well, that means father of many nations. And the guy behind the counter says, well, how many kids do you have? Abraham, I can just imagine, just puts his head down and says, I don't have any kids. Can you imagine how embarrassing that is? God changed your name. He moved you from your homeland to this place, and you've been waiting for 24 years, and He hasn't answered that prayer. How embarrassing. Abraham, the father of many nations. It's interesting that when he gave birth, when his wife finally gave birth, they named their son Isaac. You know what Isaac means? It means laughter. Laughter. When God told Abraham and Sarah that she was going to have this baby, she laughed. She laughed. She thought it was funny. No way, God, that's not going to happen. And so when he's born, He gives him this name, Laughter. And so he laughs and God laughs and everybody's laughing by this point. I want you to notice this. The most difficult stage in this whole process of faith is this. You're going to come to a dead end. or seemingly a dead end. You might want to write that down. A time when your dream seemingly is not going to work. You just can't see it. You're 99 years old, you give birth to this kid, and then this idea of this whole father of many nations seemingly disappears right before Abraham's eyes. I want you to notice this in Genesis 21. God comes to Abraham and he tells him to do something unimaginable as a parent. As a father, I just can't imagine God doing this to me. He comes to Abraham and he says this, take your only son, whom you love, and notice what he says. Let's read this out loud. And do what? And sacrifice him. God, you promised me to have a kid. And now he's here. And I love him, God. You said he was going to be I was going to be a father of many nations. And it was going to come through my own son. God, is this some kind of cruel joke? Are you kidding me, God? You want me to sacrifice my kid? Sometimes in our lives, our dreams seemingly come to a dead end. Isn't that true? We feel hopeless. Can you imagine how Abraham felt? Hopeless. Sometimes we feel hopeless about our marriages, our relationships, our finances, our careers, our friendships. And God just says, hold on a little bit. Hold on. I want you to notice the sixth stage. I'll talk about what Abraham felt about what God requested. But notice this. The sixth stage of faith is this deliverance. Deliverance. God is going to take us through this cycle where he gives us a dream, and then we have to make a decision, and then there's going to be a time of delay, and then there's going to be a time of difficulty, and then seemingly it's going to be dead. The whole dream is just dead. And then God shows up just at the nick of time to do something wonderful. Now, notice this in Genesis 22, verse 12 and 14. God says this, picture this, as Abraham is about to sacrifice his son with a knife in hand, on his way down, God says, stop, Abraham. Notice this. Don't hurt the boy. I provided a lamb. Don't hurt the boy. I provided a lamb. There's going to be a time in your life when you think that it's just done. And you're trusting in God and you're hoping in God. And God's going to show up at just the right time. And he's going to show up and he's going to deliver you from whatever that was. And it's going to be so incredible that you're going to say, wow, only God could have done that. Only God could have showed up and did what he did. Now, everybody look up here. Look up here for a second. God is going to take you through that 6 stages over and over again. If you notice in the Bible, he's done that over and over again with many different people, and he'll do that. And it's important to know when you're waiting on God that God is eventually going to show up. And that's good news. I was praying for my family when I became a follower of Christ. And I was a teenager when I gave my life to Christ, and nobody else in my house was a Christian. And I prayed for many years that my father and my mother and my sisters would get saved and my brother would give their life to Jesus Christ. And guys, let me just share a little bit of personal stuff. I waited 10 years before my mom gave her life to Christ. But I prayed, God, work in her life. Around the same time, my dad got saved too. And he started getting more involved in the church. And he started becoming a leader in the church. 23 years later, a few years ago, I was able to baptize my sister who gave her life to the Lord. My other sister has given her life to the Lord. You know what, guys? I'm still waiting on my brother to get saved, but I'm still going to pray. I'm still going to trust God, and I'm still going to trust that he's going to show up. Now, he may not answer that prayer because every one of us has a decision to make about our relationship with God. But am I going to depend on him? Absolutely. God's never going to let us down. I want you to notice this. Everybody in this room is at one of these stages. Now, I would just encourage you to look at it and say, yeah, here I am. You might put an X by it, but notice what's coming next. I want you to notice this.